Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Estefania from Gaming with Estefania. It's really great to have you here today for this new Planet Zoo tutorial. We are going to dive into the terrain tools. Yes, these tools that we have over here, terrain. In this video, we are going to focus on the role of these tools. Then in another video, we're going to check out these settings over here. And then we are going to talk about the terrain stamp tool, how you can paint the terrain, and how you can work with water. So stay tuned on my channel for these new videos. Let's start. First, we find this tool called pull, and then we find this tool called push. Pull and push are like opposites but complementary. With the pull tool, you can create a mountain, for example. You can pull the terrain up to raise the level of the terrain like this. And you can see that we have a white circle around it. The cursor is at the very center of the circle, and the white circle around it is telling us the area where the tool will have an effect on the terrain. This is for pulling the terrain and creating a mountain, but if we want to create like a valley or a river or a lake, then we can just push the terrain down to sink it and lower the terrain like this. We can see this better if I change the angle of the camera over here. If we continue applying the effect, we will have a even lower level, and here we can raise the level even more. So those are the tools, pull and push. If you want to read the official description here, you can click on the help icon, the question mark, and there you will see some terrain controls, how you can increase the radius, the intensity, and we will talk about them more in an upcoming video. But here, if you click on the right arrow, you will reach terrain sculpting. And terrain sculpting gives you a description of all of these tools. Push and pull the terrain in a direction perpendicular to the ground's surface, where the cursor is located. This can be used to raise or lower the terrain, like we saw right here. Then we find the tool Flatten to Foundation. Flatten to Foundation takes the level where the mouse pointer is as the foundation height and horizontally flattens all the terrain in the highlighted circle to it. Useful for quickly flattening areas of ground to an already established height, or removing any undulations that may be present. For example, if we want to extend this to create like a valley or a sunken habitat, then we can just use Flatten to Foundation. We left click on the mouse, and then we will be able to just level all the terrain here and flatten it to the level where the cursor was originally. So that can be super helpful. Okay, you can also flatten mountains if you need to. So that is also super helpful if you ever, for example, need to create a cave. And this almost looks like a cave, right? Flatten to Foundation. Now, we have another tool called Flatten to Surface, but in this case, this tool uses the location of the mouse pointer as a base, and it also takes into account its orientation. Flatten to Surface is taking into account its orientation, so it allows you to add new terrain to match it to easily create slopes or sheer cliffs. You can use the highlighted circle around the pointer to judge where the terrain will be filled. So for example, if we want to create a flat surface over here instead of having these rough edges, what we would do is we can use the tool Flatten to Surface, and we can change the size of this tool over here to, let's say, 5 or 6. And we can see that the area where this tool will have the effect is almost like the height of the cliff of the terrain here. If we apply this effect, we will see that it flattens that surface. But you have to be very careful about the angle, okay? Because it will flatten the terrain in the angle that you are currently using, that you currently have in your cursor. So if you have this angle, it will flatten the terrain in this angle. But if you do this step by step, one by one, you will have the effect that you want. Be very patient and detailed with this tool and you will have awesome results. I really love Flatten to Surface. And then after Flatten to Surface, we find Chisel. Chisel is a mode that takes the location and orientation of the mouse pointer as it touches the ground and removes terrain in that plane. The circles around the pointer indicate the plane being picked. This mode is useful for creating consistent slopes by removing geometry. So let's say that I want to extend this cliff horizontally. Let's see what Chisel can do for me. You can see that the circle is in this angle, in the plane of the cliff, of the wall. If I apply Chisel here, you can see that the cliff is being extended in that plane. We are removing terrain on that plane, on the vertical plane in this case. So you can see the effect over here. We are removing terrain on that plane because we have the circle vertically. But if we wanted to remove the terrain like this, downwards, then we could use this plane with a chisel tool like this. This is another great tool, and you will have smooth edges like this. Okay? So that is another great tool for creating habitats. If you need to extend this like this, you can just extend it. But be careful with something like this, right? If the circle extends beyond or below the terrain, they will take terrain from that floor too. And then you would just need to use Flatten to Foundation to flatten it if you would like to, or you can also adjust the size to avoid having unexpected effects on the floor or the terrain. Awesome, now we have Chisel, and then we find other tools like Smooth, which are super helpful. Let's say that we have this rough edge over here. If we want to smooth this out, then we could do so with the Smooth tool. We just select Smooth, we apply it to the rough terrain, and we will have a smooth terrain, which is super helpful, especially to create the edges of lakes and rivers and water, and to create habitats that your animals can also walk on or traverse. If you have like a very rough edge that your animals cannot walk through, you can smooth it out, and that will definitely help them to walk through your habitats. You can also use the Roughen tool, which is like the opposite of Smooth, to roughen the terrain. That is another option, especially if you want to create like these rocky habitats that look very realistic. You can roughen the terrain, you can roughen the edges, and you can also then add some rock work and make your habitats look great. I really like this tool, and we also have the option to Flatten to Terrace. Flatten to Terrace is a bit more detailed, it has more options that we can customize, so I will cover that in a separate tutorial. This mode flattens the raised terrain in set increments to form flat areas while retaining some verticality of the existing terrain. So let me show you a sample of what this can do. If we create a mountain, let's say that we have a mountain over here, and let's create multiple levels of that mountain. Let's just create something like this. We have an area that is a bit lower. We have a raised area over here. We have very different levels of height over here. If we apply Flatten to Terrace, you can see what happens over here. We will create flat terraces instead of a smooth mountain. Okay, and that is helpful, for example, to make space for buildings along a hill or create large wading height water features for animals. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think about this tool. Please share it in the comments. Do you like it? Do you use it? We will cover this in a future tutorial. Then you can just smooth this out, and you can also create some interesting shapes by combining all of these tools. So I hope you liked this tutorial. In a coming tutorial, we are going to talk about all of these settings, how you can customize them. We will also talk about Flatten to Terrace and how you can use the terrain stamp tool, which is super helpful to create habitats in combination with the sculpting tool. This will help to sculpt much faster. You can also paint the terrain. We will see that in another tutorial, and you can work with water. And water has many different options and settings. So I will see you in the next tutorial. Have an awesome day. Thank you for watching.